Welcome to episode 6 of 12 on our Altar Oracle Statue Deck Kickstarter. This time, I'm exploring the Dawn Goddess motif, associated with the zodiac sign Libra and the planet Venus. The Kickstarter is currently 86% funded, with only 10 days to go. This series of videos is my only real means of advertisement, so please consider using the link in the description to pre-order a copy of the deck. I also have a link to my Patreon in the description if you'd like to support me for making more videos like this. Thank you. Now, let's get on with the video. Now we have Libra. And the name Aurora I took directly from the Roman goddess of dawn and beauty, like in the imagery provided. The beautiful, colorful aurora of light that's shining before the sun rises over the horizon. And dawn is associated with the dawn star or the morning star, which is Venus. And Venus is both the morning star and the evening star. Because it's closer to the sun than the earth, we see it whenever the sun comes up over the horizon, or when the sun goes over the other side of the horizon, we can see Venus following closely behind. Mercury also follows the sun around because they're both inner planets. And this Venus connotation, apart from so much of the other motifs here, is what connects it so profoundly to Libra as an astrology sign. Since dawn literally represents the beginning of the new day, it metaphorically represents new life and birth and youth. And this sharply contrasts with the ideas about the evening star, which I am not showing in this presentation, but there is a goddess of the evening star I call Victoria, which has to do with death and the afterlife and the West. Here's another thing about dawn. It is associated with the east because that's where the sun comes up over the horizon. And so a lot of these names like Eos, Heusos, Ostara, and Ishtar all relate to the east. So Eos is the Greek goddess of dawn. Ushas is the Vedic Hindu. Dawn, where we get the word dawn, comes from a Welsh and Gaelic source, so a Celtic source. Heusos is the Proto-Indo-European goddess of dawn, reconstructed based on all these other names like Eos and Ostara and such. Another name for Ostara is Eostra or Easter, which is where we get the holiday from. And the holiday of Easter, of course, is not within the time frame of Libra in October. It's quite the opposite. It's in the spring, whereas October is in the fall. But because of dawn and the idea of new life, that is why Easter is associated with spring, because it's when new life is coming back from the death of winter. In my episode of Aries, the shepherd god, I neglected to mention Pales, a shepherd god similar to Adonis in the Roman pantheon. His festival, Perilia, is a possible namesake of April, but so too is the Etruscan goddess Aprou, same as Greek Aphrodite, equated with Venus, the Roman goddess. As per my last email, Adonis and Aphrodite were lovers, and I equated Adonis with Ares, aka Mars, the patron god of the Romans. Rome was founded in April, the month of Aries, and Veneralia, the festival of Venus, was celebrated on April 1st. Easter is often celebrated in late March, on the cusp of Pisces and Aries. Aphrodite is also referred to as one of the two fish of the Pisces constellation, despite the fact that Pisces is associated with Neptune rather than Venus, at least these days. Tangled webs like these are part of the reason I felt the need to make this deck. Let me simplify it for you. In our Pandemonic Pantheon, Aurora is the dawn goddess of Venus. One of her lovers is Lazarus, shepherd god of Mars, and she is to be considered separate from Sheila, the sea goddess of Neptune. She is also distinct from the birth goddess Leuthia, who is associated with the cusp sign Cetus between Pisces and Aries, late March. These three personas, however, share a certain set of mysterious commonalities, which, along with many others in the pantheon, we will have to work out as we go. For instance, there are many triple deities, trimurtis, and trinities throughout various mythologies and pagan movements. Hecate, who has evolved into the triple goddess of Wicca, might be represented by three goddesses: the maiden, the mother, and the crone. The dawn, the day, and the dusk, etc. Anyway, Aurora is associated with the new growth of spring through her relationship with Lazarus in April. Her April form might be thought of as Meritha, based on Athena, who shares a common ancestor, historically speaking, with Aphrodite in Ishtar. Ishtar turned into Astarte of the Phoenicians and seems to have then split for the Greeks into Aphrodite in one hand and Athena on the other, one retaining all of the beauty, dawn, and Venus aspects of Ishtar, the other, Athena, retaining the more military, war, and governance aspects. Sometimes it is hard even for me to draw distinctions between deities in my own system. After all, our pantheon, as with any living pantheon, is and always will be a work in progress. Now, a few of those aspects having to do with, say, justice and power, I left for another deity in Libra here, since there are three. Her name is Sophia. Aurora is the more elder, kind of astronomical, celestial goddess, nature goddess. Sophia has a more grounded, kind of political persona. But largely, Ishtar and such represents the selective forces of femininity. Ea is more like this more abstract version in Akkadian and Mesopotamian, since she represents literally the dawn, although she also has some justice motifs with her as well, which again brings together this whole Libra motif, since Libra is the scales and related directly with justice and many justice deities. Freya of Norse relates to this Ea sort of atmospheric dawn goddess motif, and Freya is a goddess also of beauty and selection. She rides her chariot pulled by cats, right, leading the sun, leading the new day forward. To broaden this motif a little bit more to some other regions in the world, Asit is a Yakutian, and that would be a Siberian goddess of dawn, who is given the specific role associated with the East of guiding new souls, or perhaps reincarnated souls, into their new bodies when they're born every day. So this feeds into a universal myth theme of the dawn representing birth and the dusk representing death, the East representing beginning, and the West representing the end. With that particular Siberian deity adds another dimension of this, having to do with birth in a very literal sense. Similar sounding deity to both Ea and this Asit would be the Armenian dawn goddess. An egg also sometimes is conflated with angel, with the Christianization of Armenia. There's another angel deity, Angelia, that is related to Armenian as well, and the idea of angel, which is slightly more chthonic, but this one would be a quintessential angel. I actually integrated the imagery of a seraphim angel with 6 wings, because I think the idea of an angel in this astral, celestial, new beginning, good sense is quite compatible with a lot of that sort of angelic imagery. Fallen angel, on the other side of that, has more to do with, I guess, the Victoria in the evening. Of course, in a Christian and even Zoroastrian type of worldview, there's good angels and there's evil angels. And I don't subscribe to that sort of black and white moralism. There is a place for those evening motifs as well, I think, in our pantheon that doesn't simply treat them as evil or fallen in a sense. There's also Yahubaba of the Taino, again, the Caribbean, Amerindian culture, who as a goddess also represents the gathering aspect of hunter-gathering and song, and is associated with the songbird of the nightingale. Even from the Western perspective of calling it a nightingale, this songbird is associated with the new morning, the calling, the singing, the song of the new morning, but also with the dusk and with the night, the coming of the night. There's many of these crow or corvid-like deities, crows and ravens, for instance, that represent the dusk. The cusp sign in our system of Corvus represents the archetype. So there's a dynamic between Libra here of the dawn and then its cusp in Corvus toward Virgo of the dusk. And that is the sign of Victoria that I keep referring to. And then we have Jaska of the Incan, maiden of beauty and dawn, and the morning star Venus. I feel the need to say now, I don't know if I mentioned it quite enough earlier on, but this is obviously not an exhaustive list here that I'm putting in this presentation. I'm cherry picking fairly random examples, and I know that I'm under speaking about various cultures when going through these slides, but I'm focusing on the strongest motifs I can find. There are 72 cards, so there are 72 different deities where there's at least this many strong references that I can refer to. These are just some examples. There are many other dawn goddesses in many other mythologies, and I'm constantly also working on my database and improving it, and frankly, I need help with that. This is a call to action. Leave a comment and I will reach out to you straight up. I could use anyone else who's willing to spend some hours plugging away at a database and doing some research with me. But with that, I think we're good on Aurora.